Okay, we are on Daf Chavdalid Amud Bet 24b1. Darash Rebbe Anani Bar Sason Apitcha de Ben Nesiyah. So we have a testimony of Rav Anani, the son of Sason, and he made this derasha. He announced this when he was by Pitcha, by the door of the Ben Nesiyah. Yom echad lefnei atzeret v'atzeret. If a person had one day, Yom echad, one day of mourning, and that day fell out before atzeret, v'atzeret harei kan arba asar. So what the day comes before atzeret, yeah, and then he has the holiday of atzeret. Harei kan arba asar. He has 14 days of the 30. How many days did he actually have? 2 days.
Right.
But says the Gemara, in the name of Rav Anani, it counts as if he's had 14 days in 2 days. What does that mean? How many days does he have till Shiloshim? Left? 16 days.
Yeah.
Question is, how could such a thing be? Harei kan arba asar. Let's look at Rashi. Rashi says, right in the middle of the page over here, Harei kan arba asar, atzeret chashuv kishivah, because atzeret Shavuot counts like 7. V'zeu yom shelifnei atzeret, and the day before atzeret, we say it breaks the shiva.
Right.
So even though he kept 1 day, atzeret then broke the shiva, so it's as if he has shiva, right, which is 7. Atzeret now counts also like 7, as we said. Chashuv kishiva is counts like 7. This savar ki haytana deleel da'amar afilu yom echad afilu sha'achat, even 1 hour before. V'keman da'amar atzeret kiregalim. And this goes and follows the opinion in the Braita, in the Mishnah that we just saw, that one of the opinions says that we count Shavuot as if it is one of the holidays, that it breaks the Shiv'ah or the Shiloshim. So, we are looking at 2 days now, as if they magically became 14 days. And that, my friends, is part of the astonishing idea that we expressed of, it counts lekan ulekan, which means to here and to here. We count it as, from both sides we're counting it. Not only does it count to break the 7, so it completes the first 7, it also counts as its own 7 for the further 7 after the 7. Shama Rabbi Ami heard this, v'ikpid. He said, that's crazy. How could such a thing be? Amar, atu didehi, is this something that he came up with himself? This Rav Anani? Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Oshiho. Right? It's not your own opinion. This is the opinion of Rabbi Elazar in the name of Rav Oshia. So why is he saying it as if it's his own chidush? He should have said it in the name of Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Oshia. Gemara shares a similar example like this. Darash Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, Rabbi Yitzchak the shoemaker, the blacksmith, Ikla the Resh Giluta. He went to the house of the head of the Resh Giluta, of the Galut. Yom echad lefnei atzeret. V'atzeret, he said, if a person had 1 day of mourning, Yom echad lefnei atzeret, plus atzeret, plus the holiday of Shavuot, harei kan arba asar. You have total days of 14 of Shiva. Shama Rav Sheshet heard, ikpid, he got upset. Amar atu didehi, is this your chidush? It's the chidush of Rabbi Elazar in the name of Rabbi Oshia. What is the statement of Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Oshia that was saying that both Rav Anani and Rav Yitzchak Nafcha should have reported it in their name? How do we know that Atzeret has payback for the Korban for 7 days? So if you miss the Korban of Shavuot, you're able to bring it on the 2nd day, on the 3rd day, on the 4th day, until 7th day after Shavuot. How do we know? Because it says B'chag HaMatzot u'B'chag HaShavuot. It says on the holiday of the Matzot, which means Pesach, and on the holiday of Shavuot. It compares these two. Just like HaMatzot, so all 7 days of the holiday, you're able to bring the Korban of Pesach, because it is still Pesach. If the Torah said, just like Chag HaShavuot, Chag HaSukkot, put them together. Af Chag HaShavuot, yesh la tashlumin, kol shiva. So too the holiday of Shavuot is allowed to bring the Shavuot Korban Hagigah all throughout the following 7 days post and including the holiday of Shavuot. So let's be clear. 6 days after the first day, which means 7 total days, you're able to bring the Korban. How do we learn this? Because the Torah put them in the same breath. The Torah said, Chag HaMatzot v'Chag HaShavuot. It makes them sound like Hekesh, like they're the same. Just like this has this law, so too does this have this law. That's the Dirasha of Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yoshia. So if that's the case, says the Gemara, the same way it counts as 7 days, so it's going to interrupt the Shiva because it's a 7-dayer. And if it interrupts the Shiva, so you have your Shiva days prior, plus now you have 7 more days included in the day of Atzeret, which counts as 14 towards the 30. Adivre Rav Papa le Rav Avia. Rav Papa.
Sorry, because the 1 day or the 1 hour they held is the equivalent of the full 7 of the Shiva.
Correct. And now you add to that into the Shloshim, the 7 days of that Atzeret itself is considered, okay? And then you have 14. Now this is obviously a very big chidush.
So wait, the 30 days is cut short.
Yes.
Wow.
Not cut short. It's cut. It's cut to 14. It's cut shorter.
Yes.
I'm just correcting you because when you cut short the Shiva, there's no more Shiva.
Right.
When you cut short the Shloshim over here, you still have Shloshim. So you're cutting shorter the Shloshim.
Shorter.
Okay. The Gemara says, Ad Rav Papa the Rav Avia Saba v'Darash. Rav Papa was walking together with Rav Avia Saba, the older, like the senior, v'Darash. Yom echad lifnei Rosh Hashanah v'Rosh Hashanah. Person has Shiva 1 day before Rosh Hashanah. And Rosh Hashanah then comes in, Rekan Abasar. It's as if he has 14 days of the 30. So the same idea that you had for Shavuot, Rav Papa is saying as well for Rosh Hashanah. Now, why is this a big chidush? Because when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, we don't have that whole 7-day item. It's 2 days. You don't have 7 days after Rosh Hashanah to bring the korbanot of Rosh Hashanah. So why would Rav Papa say the same thing about Rosh Hashanah, which does not have it? So still, that was the hidush of Rav Papa. Amar Ravina says Hilkach. Therefore, Yom Echad Lefnei Achag, V'Chag Ushmini Shelo. So let's say someone had someone pass away before Sukkot. Okay. So 1 day before Sukkot is 7, because it got cut short. Right. So it counts as Shiva done pre-Sukkot. Now he goes through Sukkot. How many days does he have? 7 more days. So what day of Shloshim is he up to? 14. But then he hits Shmini Atzeret, Ushmini Shelo, the 8th day. Harekan Esrim Ve'echad. Now he has 21 days of the 30. Why? Let's count. The first day counts as Shiva because it gets broken by the holiday. 7. Then comes Sukkot itself and count 7 days. Okay, you got 7 days. How many we got? 14. Now we hit Shmini Chag Atzeret. It's counted as holiday, which is 7 days. If the holiday counts as 7 days, how many days is he at? 21 days. What day is he actually on from the death? Day 9.
Right.
But we're giving him as if he's on day 21. Harekan Esrim Ve'echad. It's like...
But we can say that anything that's a chag is equal to 7 because we said chag hamatzot is 7, so any other chag is another 7?
No. No. I'm not going that far. I'm saying that it seems like the Gemara of Ravina is really built on the chidush of Rav Papa. Because Rav Papa gave us this with regards to Rosh Hashanah, where you don't have the 7-day concept. You understand? So since Rosh Hashanah cut it short, we compared it to the other holidays, and we gave you the full Shiva. Okay? But the question will be, we'll have to see at a later point, will Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, will it cut short Shloshim? We need you to put it on mute. Levi, I think you need to put it on mute because we're hearing the background talking. Okay, thank you, Tzaddik. Looking forward to your birthday, Be'ezat Hashem. So that's the chidush over here. Rosh Hashanah, Kippur don't have the 7-day aspect, but once we learned that he includes in this Rosh Hashanah, now we say even if there's not a 7-day post for Shmini Atzeret, we'd also be able to dig into, give another 7 days for Shmini Atzeret as well. Okay? Now, Lema'aseh, we're going to hold this way for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, also with regards to the Shiloshim as well. All right? But we're not going to get into that now because it's a little too complicated for what we're saying. It's not so relevant. But anyway, the Gemara says it would count as 21. Ravina ikla Surah de Pirat. Ravina went to Surah on Nachal Pirat, on the Euphrates River. Amale Rav Chaviva misura de Pirat le Ravina. Rav Chaviva told the visiting Ravina who came to his town, Amar Mar, what we learned from our rabbi, Yom Echad Lifnei, 1 day Lifnei Rosh Hashanah, V'Rosh Hashanah, Arekan Arba Asar. How much do you have? 14. Same thing that he just heard from Rav Papa, that Rosh Hashanah will give you the 7. So 7 is the day before. Rosh Hashanah gives you 14. Now in 2 days I got 14. Then Rosh Hashanah passes. What do you have? Right? Rosh Hashanah Ekan Arba Asar. You have 14 days. Right? Is that true? Amaleh, Ravina says, Ana mistabra, Kiraman Gamliel, Huda Amina. The reason, and the way I see it, I understand Rav Gamliel that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are the same as other festivals, and since that's the case, I agree also that you'd get 14 days off from Rosh Hashanah as well. Okay, so far so good? Now, by the way, why is the whole question of Yom Kippur breaking Shiloshim relevant? Because let's say the guy had day 1 on the day before Rosh Hashanah. Then he hits Rosh Hashanah. What do we just say that it counts like? No. 7 and 7, 14. Okay. How long till Yom Kippur? 10 days. What day does that put him on? 24. But if Yom Kippur gives you 7, then you're already over the 30. So the question of Yom Kippur is really linked to the question of Rosh Hashanah giving you 14. But the Gemara doesn't extend the point and tell you what will happen with Yom Kippur, which is why there's a machloket amongst the Rishonim. Because if it was clear, then surely the Gemara should have told us, then 10 days later, when you hit Yom Kippur, you're done. That means that the whole 30 days took you 11 days. According to the opinion that Yom Kippur is going to cut off the Shiloshim and give you another 7, then you already passed your date and it should be over. Okay? However, we're not going to get into the halacha. Machloket Rishonim consensus seems to be that Yom Kippur does break Shiloshim as well. Says the Gemara. Says the Mishnah. We're on the Mishnah.
This rule is not followed.
Is followed. Is followed. That the holidays can break Shiv'ah and Shloshim is followed. It gets complicated for people. How do you count it? Exactly, how do you count the days? Especially when they're going into holidays. I'll never forget, I was on a Pesach program and a person on the trip got word that far away in another country, their relative passed away. They sat Shiva Erev Hag, okay, before the second days of the holiday. They sat for a few minutes, however long it was, before the holiday came in. And then the holiday came in and they got up from Shiva. And the whole Shiva was a few minutes. And then what happened? Not only is the Shiva a few minutes, you're also 7 days in to the Shiva. Had that happened before the first holiday, what would have been? The first day would have counted for 7. The holiday would have taken them to 14. By the time they got to the end of the holiday, they're 8 days later, right? What day do you have? You're at day 21.
Yeah.
And then Shmini Atzeret should also give you 7. They should be at 28. So the Shiloshim should have been celebrated if that was the case.
They mourned for 2 days.
They mourned for 1 day.
So 1 day and then the rest of the 30.
And then the rest of the 30, but not
Two days.
Shiva days,
Not Shiva.
Shloshim days,
Yeah.
which is, again, no, it's mild Avelut.
Yes.
It's much more mild, has halachot. But in total, the whole Shiva and Shloshim was 3 days.
So people that
But again, that wasn't the case there. Because in that case, the person passed away
Because you
before
don't
that,
know when they
before the
passed away.
second holiday.
Right.
Okay?
Oh.
so people that wear beards for 30 days, whatever it is, this counts also as 3 days. It counts as a 30.
Hold on. No. In that case, it could not have been that it passed away on the holiday, because then the Shiva would have been pushed and started after the holiday. And that was not what happened. So it must have been that it was before.
It was the Shamas.
Shamas, it was before. I'm remembering now because it can't be. Because if it was before the second holiday, then the Shiva would have just been pushed off till after. Right? This happened when we were in Turks and Caicos that year.
So they 30 days is really like day 12 or whatever it is, and then they sheet?
No,
You're saying after Passover,
yeah.
it's already day 28, then 3 days later is Shloshim. Technically, do they shave at that point?
So it would depend on the relationship with the person. Remember, it would depend on the relationship with the person.
Father, mother.
Like is it father, mother, or other relation? Why? Because we spoke about the fact that even after you pass Shloshim, right, your person also needs Ge'ara, which means that you need someone to tell you look terrible. This is horrible, if it's only been halachic 30 days, but the person looks perfect, and nobody says anything to them, and they don't look bad, technically they would stay until there's Ge'ara. So you would need physical Ge'ara. What would happen if you had premature fake Ge'ara? It's an interesting halachic question. Where someone said, you look horrible. Meanwhile, the guy don't even have a whisker. Right? Does that count as Ge'ara when the person is just tricking the system? So that would be an interesting halachic question to delve into. Okay, says the Mishnah. Let's continue. The Mishnah says right at the bottom of 24b3 or Chavdad Amud Bet in the regular Gemara. En kor'in ve'lo choltzin ve'en mevarin ela kirovav shel met. Says the Gemara, a person does not do kiriyah, ve'lo choltzin, and you don't. Remember we talked about how they would take the shirt off their shoulder. Ve'en mevarin, and you don't get the mourner's meal, which is the meal that was given to you, not of your own food, but someone else would give you that meal. Okay, that's the mourner's meal. There's also halachot about what they should eat at that meal. So you don't tear, you don't take off the clothing from your shoulder. You don't have the mourner's meal. Ela kirobav shel met. Only the relatives of the person who passed. Now we'll have to see what's the Mishnah telling you. Obviously, you're not going to give a mourner's meal to a person who's not a mourner. What's the chidush? Ve'en mevarin ela al mita zekufa. Not only that, when we give you the meal of the mourner, we serve you the mourner al mita zekufa, on the mita, on a bed that's turned up. It's standing up, like the word zokef kifufim. Okay? Now, why was this the case? Remember we talked about how they would turn over the meal? Okay? So, sorry?
The bed, turn over the bed, or?
They would turn over the bed, yes. Okay? So, the mourner would only eat his meal on this bed. And the question is, what does this upright bed mean? Do we mean to say that he eats it on an upside down bed, or do we mean that he eats it in the upright bed? We'll get to it in the Gemara. The Gemara says, okay, what does this mean? When we talked about the idea that only people that have all these laws are kirovav shel met, are the close ones of the dead. Yes, the Gemara. We already talked about the idea that when a chacham passes away, there's a communal level of mourning. So what about a chacham? Would we say the same thing? The only people that mourn, that get served the mourner's meal, the only person the only people that we bring comfort to, all the laws of the Mishnah, right, bearing the shoulder, is that only if you're related? What about a Chacham? Gemara says, V'atanya, didn't we learn in the Braita? Chacham shemet, when a Chacham dies, hakol kirovav. Everyone is considered to be related to him with regards to these laws of tearing and showing some form of mourning. Hakol kirovav sakadaitach. The Gemara says, do you think that it means that everyone is actually kirovav? Hakol kikirovav. It's as if they are his relatives. The Gemara says, the Braita, hakol korin alav, everyone rips their clothing for him. Hakol choltzim alav, and everyone takes off their shoulder, the clothing off their shoulder. Hakol mevarin alav barachava, and we feed the mourner's meal in the streets because the whole community is mourning for him. The Gemara says, lo tzricha delav chachamu. No, so you're right. The Mishnah is obviously talking about a case where the guy is not a chacham. When the guy's a chacham, everyone's considered kirovav, they're considered to be his relative, and then they do it. But when the guy's not a chacham, then you're not considered his relative, and then we only do it for the immediate family. The Adam Kasheru, what if the person is not a sage, but he's Adam Kasher, he's a kosher person. Right? Obviously, a person should tear over him. Tanya, because we say, why do people have children that pass away young? In order that they should also mourn and weep for Adam Kasher. What does that mean for Adam Kasher? The Adam Kasher is a person who is completely clean. So therefore, when someone passes away and they're young, a person is now crying over Adam Kasher because the child has not done any averot. Okay, I just want to show you one thing here. Hold on. Where did I see this?
Very harsh to say, that the reason that this happens is because someone, the parent doesn't have it, so it's like they pass away because the parent did something wrong.
Hold on one second. Yeah. So let's go back to it. I thought I remembered seeing something over here. It might have been another masechet on this. Hold on. Here. So take a look at, that's where it was. I found the Rabbeinu Hananel. That's where it was. Let's see Rabbeinu Hananel. Now, I want to read the words of Rabbeinu Hananel, and then I want to read again the words of the Gemara with you. So it's in these tiny letters in the far column. Everyone can see it? Over here? Rabbeinu Hananel? Over here. Yep. So right around at the top. The Tanya, because we learned, you see it? Maybe 10 lines down? You got it? The Tanya? Yeah?
Yeah.
The Tanya, we learned the Braita, why do children pass away? A person's children pass away, when they're very young, when they have no sins, because he did not cry and mourn over Adam Kasher. Is that the same as what the Gemara says? Let's look back at the Lashon of the Gemara. Go back to the Gemara now. The Tanya, why do a person's children pass away when they're young? In order that he should cry and mourn over a righteous person, over a kosher person. That is not what Rabbeinu Hananel said. The language of the Gemara is in order that you should cry and that you should mourn for Adam Kasher. What does Rabbeinu Hananel say? Why did it happen? Mepnei shelo bacha. In Rabbeinu Hananel, it's very clear that he's learning the Gemara that someone kosher passed away and you didn't care and you didn't cry. Now the person's children will pass away, young. Rabbeinu Hananel is clear. The Gemara, I think, gives us some wiggle room. It doesn't mean that you didn't cry, but rather, kidei sheyivkeh, in order that you should cry for Adam Kasher in the future. Gives you a chance to cry. So we have to understand, what does the Gemara mean? If it's Rabbeinu Hananel, it's very harsh, but at least I understand what the Gemara is trying to say. He didn't cry for Adam Kasher, therefore the punishment is that this should happen. Okay? In the Gemara, why does it happen? In order that you should cry for, what does that mean?
So the children get taken away to teach the parent a
Yeah,
lesson.
it sounds like it.
The children are being punished
In Rabbeinu Hananel, yes.
the inaction of the
Inaction of their parents. That's what Rabbeinu Hananel says. At least, yeah. The Gemara, it's not saying that. The Gemara seems to be saying the language that we have is in order that you should.
You don't have the sensitivity.
But again, what does it mean in order that you should? They pass away in order that you should what?
Learn how to
Should, but
feel
it doesn't
bad.
mean
I mean, that sounds like they died for nothing. They died to teach you a lesson in the future.
No, it could have been.
Nobody did anything
It
wrong.
could have been happening anyway. It's
Oh, okay. So then how could you say that it's in order Kedesha Yivke? What does that mean?
happening connected to those parents that don't have the ability to mourn for.
If he gets to that level, mochlim al avnotav.
So you're already translating it. So let's see what it says in the next piece of the Gemara, and then we'll see how it fits in Rabbeinu Hananel's Girsa and the way that he had the Gemara written versus the way we have it in our Gemara. The Gemara says, Yibkevi it avel. 1 second. It says over here that you will. Yibkevi it avel, in order that you should. Kideshi yivke v'it avel erbona kashaki mine. I don't understand. You're taking the kid before so that he will in the future. Because he did not cry. So the end of the Gemara is the language of Rabbeinu Hananel in the beginning.
Right.
So the Gemara basically gets in the second instance to what Rabbeinu Hananel is saying in the beginning. Well, let's try and understand now what that means. Shekol abochem mitaber Adam kasher, person cries and mourns for Adam kasher. Mochlino akol almonotav, they forgive all of his sins. B'shvil kavod she'asalo, because of the kavod that they did to this Adam kasher. Okay? So, in this case, what are we talking about? What are we seeing? We're seeing that a person who's kasher, even if he's not a chacham, he's Adam kasher. You have an obligation, everyone has an obligation to cry and mourn for him. Okay? The Gemara says, and we're proving this because it says that this is why young people will pass, because he did not cry. Some of the commentators want to explain that no, the child was supposed to die because of, that's how long he was given. Or the child was supposed to pass away because of some other sin that you did, which the punishment for that is that they'll pass away. But I could have got kapara. I could have changed the future of a child that was not supposed to die if I would have done this. Refraining to do this is not a punishment. Rather, I just didn't get the reward which would have kept them alive.
I didn't get to stop it.
I didn't get to stop it with my actions.
But it was going to happen.
But it was going to happen anyway.
But I did nothing.
Yes. That's how some of the commentators answer what the Gemara is saying. So in other words, I could have had a zechut that would have extended their life. Because I didn't do that, I didn't have that zechut to extend their life. Now, I think there's one of the elements which over here is maybe somewhat connected is, now that we see the end of the Gemara, maybe now we go back to the beginning of the Gemara, we understand the Braita a little bit differently. Maybe what we're understanding is that the person is experiencing the death of children. Why? Because children are also completely kasher, haven't done anything wrong. So the lack of mourning for Adam kasher is now experienced by the person who's now mourning for Adam kasher. Okay? Now, let's continue. Kol habocher u'mitabel al Adam kasher. Sorry. It's the Gemara. So the Gemara, what's the Gemara's question? Gemara's question is, you see over here that even strangers are being taken to task for the fact that they did not cry or mourn whatsoever for the death of Adam Kasher. We just told you in the Mishnah that if it's not your relative, you have no obligation. So you're just now telling me Adam Kasher, everyone has an obligation. Answer the Gemara, you're right. Our Mishnah is not talking about Adam Kasher. It's not talking about a Chacham. Just talking about a regular person where, unless you're a Karov, you don't mourn. The Gemara says, what if someone is there when the person actually passes away? You're in the room. You're obligated to do so. The Tanya, the Braita says, if someone is standing in the room at the time with the neshama, left them chayav the kroah, has obligation to tear his clothing. What does it compare to? The Sefer Torah shenisraf, like a Sefer Torah that gets burned. Shechayav the kroah, where a person who sees the Sefer Torah get burned has an obligation to tear kiriyah. Says Rashi, top Rashi, you see it over there? Top Rashi says the Sefer Torah, the Torah kiriyah ner, because the Torah is called a candle. Shneimar ki ner mitzvah Torah, or v'neshama nekrat ner, and the neshama is also called a ner, ner Elohim nishmat adam. So therefore, since the Torah is called a ner, and the neshama is called a ner, the same way when the neshama is snuffed out, there's an obligation to tear kiriyah. So when a person sees a Torah that is burned, so they also have an obligation of kiriyah that we learn out of the fact that both of them are like an extinguished candle. So therefore, again we see that a person has an obligation, even if it's not chacham, even if it's not kasher, to tear if they were there in the room. So why are you telling me that only you have to tear if you're a relative? Here we see even if you're not a relative. The Gemara says, the Mishnah is talking about when you weren't there. So each time we try and bring you another thing which proves that if you're not relative, you still have kiriyah. The Gemara says correctly, the Mishnah is not talking about cases where there's another reason why you have to rip. Chacham, Adam Kasher, you were in the room at the time. We're talking about a regular case of avelut, only applies to a person's kirovim. Kinach nafshed, Rav Safra, when Rav Safra passed away, lo karu Rabbanan aleh, the Chachamim did not tear their clothing on him. Amri, they said, lo gamrina mineh, we did not learn from him, he was not our rabbi. So, we don't have a hayuv to be able to tear for him. Amar lehu Abaye said to the rabbis, mitanya harav shemet. Does it say in the Braita, your rabbi who passed away? It says chacham shemet, not your chacham, a chacham shemet. And therefore, you have a hayuv to tear kiriyah even if you didn't learn from him. Regardless of whether or not he taught you, people are studying from him in the Beit Midrash. So they're quoting Rav Safra. Rav Safra never taught you, he was not your personal rabbi, but he's a chacham, and as well you're learning his teachings in the Beit Midrash. What are we seeing over here on a double level? We're seeing on a double level a person has an obligation to tear kiriyah for either of these two circumstances, even if they're not your direct rabbi and you did not teach them specifically. Because of the way Abaye is setting it up. Savur, the rabbis, they did not rip because they made a mistake. Madahava. They thought, okay, since we didn't do it at the time, let's let bygones be bygones. Amadu Abaye said, Tanina, we learned chacham, when it comes to a chacham, kozman she'oskin behesped, chayavim the crop. So long as we're still giving a hesped, we're doing a eulogy, chayavim the crop, okay, you still have an obligation to tear. So since they're still giving eulogies and speeches about Rav Safra after his passing, even though when you first heard the news you didn't rip, you should still rip now, even though you made the mistake initially. Savun mikra la'alter, so they said, okay, brilliant. According to that, so then we should tear right now, because the eulogies are still going on. The Gemara answers, Amalu Abaye. Abaye said, no. Tanya, we learned the Braita, Chacham kivodo behespedo. When it comes to a Chacham, the kavod of the Chacham is that when they're saying the eulogy, that's when people are ripping. So we need to now, the Chachamim that did not rip for him, should go to a eulogy for Rav Safra, and then tear their clothing at the eulogy, and at the point of the relation, the telling over of how great he was and why we're going to miss him so much. Kinach nafshe de Ravuna passed away. Savar le'otuve sefer Torah apurayu. They thought maybe, you know something, as a way of celebrating how much Torah he taught, that we're going to put a sefer Torah on the casket, on the bier when they were carrying him. They thought that would be an appropriate way of eulogizing him, and there was a historical precedent when they put once the Torah on somebody when they were taking him out to burial, and they said Kiyem zeh ma dekatuv bazeh. This guy, he kept what it says in this. He kept what it says in this in the Torah. Amalu Rav Chizda said to them, Milta de bechaye lo svirle, something that this man Rav Huna never held of in his own life. He never did this idea of putting a person and a bed and a Torah on the same bed. Hashta lekum le'avedle. Now that he passed away, we're going to do to him what he himself felt was not correct. Rav Tachlifa said, Rav Huna. I saw Rav Huna that he wanted to sit down on his bed. But a Sefer Torah was on the bed. So before, instead of seating himself on it, what did he do? He took a pot, he flipped it over and put it on the ground. Sefer Torah ilave, and he put the Sefer Torah on this like turned over pot. So it was elevated from the floor, the amount that it was elevated, and only then did he sit down on the bed. What do you see from there? Sefer Torah ilave, Al Makasava, we see that Rav Huna held, Asur Deshev al Gabi Mita, Sefer Torah Munach Aleha. You can't sit on a bed that the Sefer Torah is on. So what are you going to do? You're going to put the Torah on the bed that he's lying on? Something he didn't do when he was alive. You're going to do to him when he passed away? Gemara says, Lu havenafik purai mibaba, the bed, the processional bed. The bier, it might not be a casket which is closed, it might be which is open, but whatever they were carrying him on could not get through the door, and the reason why is because it was too wide for the doors. They thought maybe what they were going to do is instead, they would lower it from the roof through a hole in the roof. Rav Chizda said, we learned from Rav Huna, Chacham kivodo derech petach. A Chacham, when they're taking him out to burial, the way to honor him is that he should go through the doorway. So they thought, okay, fine, you know what? Let's move him from a bed that can't fit through the door to a smaller bed, to a narrower bed. Rav Chizda says, I heard from the Chacham, Chacham kibodo b'mitah rishona. The Chacham, the kabod of the Chacham is that he's carried out on the bed that they first placed him. We don't move him out of kavod for the Chacham. So therefore, you're not able to take him from one bed and put him on another bed. How do you know the Chacham's kabod? Is that he should be on the bed, on the first bed that he was placed. They took the Aron of Hashem and they moved it to a new chadash, to a new carriage. Okay, to Eglah Chadasha. So what do you see from there? That instead of changing, when they had the ark, Rashi says Alegla Chalasha, Oto Agala sheshigruhu Pilishtim ba, the Agala, the carriage that the Pilishtim sent to Aaron back, Ubeota Egla Haviu David bet Avinadav David. They brought David as well. So what's the hadush? What's the connection? The pasuk says that they attached to the wagon. Where's the pasuk? Let's read the pasuk inside. והקיבו את ארון אלוהים אל העגלה החדשה, ויצאו מבית אבינדב אשר בגבעה, ועוזה ואחיו בני אבינדב נוהגים את העגלה החדשה. What? This should prove the opposite. One second. So in other words, even though there was a new, they could have put it on a new wagon, David HaMelech put it on the same wagon. Rashi says, the same one that the Pilishtim sent it on. So again, we're finding this idea that the kavod of something is to put it on the first thing that it was on, not to move it from one thing to another thing. So what did they do in the end? If they couldn't switch him from the bed, and they couldn't take him out the roof, and they couldn't, what did they do? Paros bava ve'afkua. They shattered the doorpost, the wall, the side of the door, and they were able to bring him out through the front of the house. What happened now that he came out in the front of the funeral of Rav Huna? Patach alei Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba began with saying about Rav Huna. This rabbi of ours, he had the zechut really that he should have the Shekhinah rest on him. He should have prophecy, so to speak, Ruach HaKodesh. But because he lived in Bavel and not in Eretz Israel, the Shekhinah does not rest on someone outside of Eretz Israel. That's the place where the Shekhinah rests on people. Rav Nachman bar Chizda asked, and some people say Rav Nachman bar Chizda, Hayo haya devar Hashem el Yecheskel ben Buzi, hakohen be'etz Kasdim. You see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to Yecheskel ben Buzi when he was in the Eretz Kasdim, in this place in another country. So you see, Eretz Kasdim, where was Eretz Kasdim? In the land of Bavel. So if Hashem appeared to Yecheskel in Bavel, right? So Hashem could have rested on what's it called? On Rav Huna. The Gemara says, the Rav Chizda's father, he hit him with his what do they call it in Arabic? The sandal? Shep, okay? Hit him with the thing. Trach. Amar le, lav amina lacha, lo titrud alma. Didn't I tell you not to drive crazy? People, you're asking all these questions. My haya. Hayo haya. The word of God was to Yecheskel. Shaya kvar. It means that when Yecheskel was in Israel, he gave him the prophecy. But when he went to Chutz La'aretz, that already, there was no more prophecy. Gemara says, that time, when they took him to Eretz Israel, because they took him from Bavel to Eretz Israel to bury him. Amru Rav Ami Rabasi. They told Rav Ami Rabasi, Rav Huna Atai. Rav Huna has he's come to the land of Israel. Amru, they thought that they meant that he was coming to live in Israel. They had not heard the news, they didn't have internet. Okay? Ki avin hatam lo havana ledlu yereshin mineh. He said, when we were in Bavel, we could not lift up our heads because of Rav Huna. Now we came to Eretz Israel so that we could be rabbis, not in his presence because he's so big. Ata batrin, he came. Amru, they said, no. Arono ba, his casket has come. His coffin has come. Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi, Nafuk, Rabbi Ila, Rabbi Hanina. They went out to be part of the funeral procession. Rav Ila, Rav Hanina, lo Nafuk. Other two rabbis over there, Rav Ila and Rav Hanina did not go out. Ika da Amri, Rav Ila Nafak. Some people say that Rav Ila did go out. Rav Hanina lo Nafak. Rav Hanina did not go out. The Gemara says, "Din nafak my ta'ameh." Why did the one who went out, in other words, either Rav Ila or either Rav Ila and Rav Ami Ravasi, or just Rav Ami Ravasi, the ones who went out, why did they go out? The Tanya, because we learned Aron Ha'ovim Makon Nakom, when you have a coffin that goes from one place to the other, Omdim Alav B'Shura, they stand in the line. Ve'omrim Alav Birkat Avelim Tanchumei Avelim. They say the blessing for the mourner, and they say as well the condolences to those people. Now, since Rav Huna already passed away a long time ago, so the people that were there had an obligation to be able to go out. That's why they felt they have to go out, because when the Aron comes, like the we learned just now in the Braita that the people have to stand as the Aron comes. Dilon afak. So what about the ones that didn't go out? Why did they not go out? My tama. The Tanya we learned in the Braita Aron havim makom makom. When you have a Aron, a coffin, going from place to place. En omdim alav b'shura. You don't stand in the shura. En omdim alav berkat avidim v'tanchumei avidim. You do not stand there and say the condolences to the mourners and the beracha. The Gemara says, Kashin Adadi. 1 second. You just told me when the Aron comes, even though he passed away a while ago, you have to stand in the line and do the prayers and the condolences. Now you're telling me when the Aron comes, you don't have to. And that's how you're giving them the two different opinions a weight. The Gemara says, it's a contradiction. The Gemara says, Lo kasha. No, there's no question. Kan sheshildu kayemet. In the first case, when they have to go out, we're talking about when the skeleton is shildo, the skeleton, kayem is still intact. Kan b'she'en shildo kayemet. The later case is when the skull is no longer intact. And that point, it's already so far, there's no obligation to come give that level of kavod to the body. The Gemara says, Rav Huna shildo kayemet haya. Of course, Rav Huna, in this case, from Bavel to Israel is not so long that they were traveling. His skull was for sure intact. It didn't go out. Gemara says, no. The lo nafak, those that did not go out, lo saimua kameh. They did not understand what was going on. They didn't explain correctly. And they thought that Rav Huna had passed away such a long time ago that now when they were bringing him here, the skull was no longer intact. And that's why...
So they're both right.
Correct. They're both right. They were operating under different assumptions. We're already over time. Right. We'll continue from here. We ended on 25a4 in the middle of the account of Rav Huna's Levaya. Baruch Hanei Le'olam. Amen.